Okay, we're live. We're sending Zach messages while he's being held by the FBI for his hacking incidents. Um, so go ahead and open your code. Let's open up the lights out HTML in our control. Oh, there we go. In our thing here, I think JavaScript is actually on my desktop. There it is. Light out. Okay, so last week we ran through this. We got it where it will. Oh, mine only turned the top lights. Oh, I had you guys. Were you guys supposed to figure out how to turn on the bottom lights? That's right. Okay. Anyone here not able to do that? Because we're going to do this quick anyway, just to show. But it should have been straightforward for you. If you go to your code, let's see, turn light on. We click a button. We check and see if it's off or on. Okay, if light's off, then we turn it green. If light's on, we turn it red. Let's see, style, background color, black. I gotta refresh my memory here real quick. Oh, here we go. So we got turn light on, row and column. That's one that's clicked. We got the above light. And so we're gonna do the below light. So the easiest way to do that again is just to copy all this. Go to our below light and paste it. Now, first thing, if we ran this right now, we would have an error because we're trying to redefine the same variable twice. I said you could reuse this variable, but it might be better just to rename. Oops. What's the old saying? Touchpads are evil. There we go. Shift. Below. So I'm going to rename. I'm going to set let below equal row. We were doing row -1, so now we have to do row +1. And we need this to be below. Is greater than 0, then turn on light row below. So if I save that and then I go check it out, let's refresh. Hey, we got a below light. It's all working. And it's smart enough to turn off and on where we want it to. Okay, does that work for everyone? Was anyone not able to get that? Including the ladies in the back who have gone off and done their own thing anyway. Does that work for both of you? Do you turn them on both on above and below? Oh, it's not working now? Okay, did you check your JavaScript console, see if you got an error? Okay, so then if there's no error, then it's a logic error. If we go to the code, really this code right here is all that does it. And so make sure that if you defined a new variable, that variable is called in both other places. So I'd redefined row above to row below, and I called row below in both places. I changed it to +1 from -1 up here, so that would change the correct one. And still doesn't work for you?
Yeah, it just says unexpected end of input.
Oh, so that means we're probably missing a curly bracket. Here, I'll come take a look, but I won't make Zach wait for us. Okay, so there is a logic error here that actually doesn't really break anything, but it's not right. And that's what this line right here. If row below is greater than 0, what should we compare in row below? When we did row above, we wanted to make sure that we weren't trying to set a row that was less than our first row. So we want to make sure row above or below is less than 6. Now, again, it doesn't appear to be breaking anything. It doesn't really care, but it could cause some issues. So why run the function if we don't need to? So I changed if row below greater than 6 to, or greater than 0 to less than 6. So is that working for you now, Silas? Is it doing above and below? No, okay. Let's see what it's doing now. A second. Okay, so we got top and bottom working. Now we want to get left and right working. So let's start with our left side. When we click on the left. So here, we're clicking on the row, click our light. We're clicking above, we're clicking below, or we're doing the below right light. Now let's add a line again at the end of here, but before our closing curly bracket of our function. This is going to be our left. Oh, I can't type. Left light. So we're going to turn on our left light. Now instead of changing the row number, we want to change the column number. Now that's a little more tricky because our column numbers aren't actually numbers. They are C1 through C4. So what's kind of interesting here is we generate our column number here for the first click, and then we're going to want to generate our column number for a second time for the left click and a third time for the right click. So that means let's move generating your column number into a function so we can use it multiple times. So what I'm going to do is under this function, but before we turn on light, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to create a function. And I'm just going to call it getCol. We're going to get our column number. And I want to pass it a variable. So I'm going to get the parameter. I'm just going to call the parameter C right now. I want to make sure everyone's got that. So we're going to do a function getCol with the parameter C. We're going to pass it the actual number of the column, and then we're going to get it. Now, what we want to do is we want to do exactly what this switch case is doing, where it set our column number, and then it did a switch on the column number. So let column number equal 0. Switch case 1. So it's doing case on col here, what we're passing. So I want to grab this whole thing. Come on, slow. Okay, I'm going to grab the entire switch case from switch all the way down to its closing bracket after default. Oops. Everyone got that highlighted? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out. I'm not going to use it here anymore. I'm going to X, get rid of it.
Wait, starting from where?
Just a second. Starting at the beginning of the switch, all the way down to the last curly bracket here. Let me.
From the beginning of the switch or from the function turn light on?
No, from the beginning of the switch. Here we go. Can you read that, or is that too small?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, so we got our function. We set our variables, and then I'm grabbing from the beginning of the switch to the end of the curly bracket of the switch. Everyone got that? I'm going to cut it. I'm going to make my size a little bigger. I'm going to go inside of my getCol function, and I'm going to paste it there. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, but now instead of switching on col, I'm going to switch on C, which is the parameter we're going to pass it.
I don't have that alert.
Oh, don't worry about it. If you don't have this stuff, you don't have alert, oops, under default.
Default I have light on equals burned out.
Okay.
Maybe I'm in the wrong switch.
You might be, you're in the wrong switch case. Yep. Okay. Yep. Go up to the one that's switch case.
Okay, yes.
On col. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're not switching on col anymore because it doesn't work anymore. We're switching on this parameter C. So I'm going to just switch case on C, which is going to be passed to this function.
Wait, okay, so which thing do I copy and paste?
Okay, so here, I'll back way up. Let's see, is that all the way up? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go inside my function, click light. Third row, so I'm going to get my switch col. I'm going to go all the way down and come on, there we go. Grab it. I'm going to Control X to get rid of it. I'm going to go inside my switch call. I'm going to Control V to paste. So now it's all inside a switch call between the opening and closing curly brackets there. Or get call, sorry, inside a get call.
Inside of the get
Function get call, yep. And then the only last thing I have to do is, right now it says switch call, C-O-L. I want to switch on this parameter I'm going to pass, C. So I'm just going to change that to C. Everyone got that? You can't test it yet. But now what we can do is we can go back up to our function, click light, and where we had our function call before, actually I'm going to go get call C here. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste that in here. Except I'm going to say get call, up closing parenthesis, that. So I'm just adding that line in. So now I'm going to call the thing and I'm going to pass call, which we were using before in our switch. Does that make some sense? Anyone severely lost going, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, which is okay to say. You can get lost in this stuff easy sometimes. If everything is right now, if you save it and try it, functionality should be exactly the same as what we had before. You're going to have to click twice, but we'll figure that out eventually. So anyone not able...
C is not
C is
defined.
not defined? Okay. So go down to your function get call. Make sure the parameter here is C. And that's C. Maybe it can't take parameters and switches. Let's see. Is there anyone else having C undefined? No?
I'm not having click light is not defined.
Click light. This one? That's interesting. Let me take a look here in a second. I want to make sure mine is functioning, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to shift refresh. Mine's not functioning at all, so I've got...
It's the get call C that we pasted in click light. It's saying that one's the one that's not that fully. But
that's interesting. So
maybe if you deleted it, it would say that function get call C is also not defined. Might be not getting past it.
function get call C. And so get call.
I have C in there instead of call.
Oh, so you should put call in there. So it should go here. Everything should be loaded already because this is a function call that doesn't happen automatically. We click on it. So get call. It goes to get call and it passes call, which is C, which becomes C. We put C in here and it goes there. So let's see. I want to try this one more time. Let's see. Make sure I'm saved. I am saved. It's grayed out. Go here, shift refresh to reload the entire page. Click nothing. Let's inspect. Console. Uncaught error, get document get element by ID blank is null. Line 119. Let's go look at our line 119.
And specify that's the style, that dot style is null.
Why would that suddenly do that though? That's interesting. If light on, so we get, it's saying this is probably null, so it's not getting its ID is probably what's going on. So, and it gets its ID, where do we set ID up here? Let ID equal R plus C. So we got turn lights on C. So C is being passed and turn lights on. We're calling turn light on colnum. Here's turn light on colnum equals 0. We got to return a number. That's what our problem is. I'm calling the switch, but it's not doing anything. So if I call the switch, I'm sorry, I should have caught that. See, we're setting colnum here equal to that. So first of all, colnum inside this function, colnum only exists inside of this function. It's not a global variable. So when I call it down here, first of all, this variable doesn't exist inside this function. So the first thing I need to do this is I need to define this function in here. Colnum equals, or I'll just define column like that. So now that'll let us set column, which is good. But we need, since column isn't a global variable, we're going to have to return it. So after all this is done, so has everyone got column set right here? This is a good exercise. I should have caught it earlier. Let's go to the end of our switch, but before the end of our function. And functions can do this. We're going to return column. What that says is that function is going to return that value. Now we're not fixed yet, but we're closer. So everyone got return column in? So now if we go back to our column call, what we're going to do here instead is we're going to say column equals get call. So what it's going to do is it's going to call this function. It's going to pass it the column from the call, and then when we do our return, it's going to send that variable back, that value back, and we're going to set that to column. At that point, then hopefully everything should work correctly. Did I lose anyone on what's going on there? So the return. So what we were doing here is we were returning column that we set here. So that means that this function will return a value when it's used. And so when we use this function right here, it returned that value and set it equal to our column here. Anyone still confused or? Okay, cool. So that works, right? Your click light is not defined. Okay, so after you do that, our click light is right here. Did something change, first of all, in this function line? Compare your function line to mine. Function click light. That's the only bad thing with Zach. I don't know, the FBI doesn't let us talk back and forth very much, so he can't say, this isn't working for me, why isn't it? So that's why I got to send him the code when I'm done. I should do that. So function, does that match yours, Caden? Okay. So what line number is your click num not defined on? What's it say? Okay, but what's the line number it gives you right now? Oh, it depends on the square you clicked on? So refresh your browser. Click on one box and check and see what line number it says. 9, okay. So if we go to line 9, that's nothing there. Oh, I bet it's in the HTML. So it changes every time. So what it's doing is it's saying line 9 in your HTML. Up here, it's saying, hey, here's click light. I can't find click light. So double check. I can't believe this would have changed. But click light here should be the same. Pass in 2 numbers, semicolon. Does that all look right? Capital L, all lowercase, and no space. So now if we go to our JavaScript, go to our click light definition, still capital L, no space. I find it hard to believe that's changed, but I just want to confirm that we.
There's another error that says unexpected token ends up curly.
Okay, now that is after the first error, because what'll happen is one error will cause the next error will cause the next error. So you should always look at that. But let's look at your function call. So
It was just right here. A random curly bracket. I'm not sure if it does it.
oh, did you do it? See what that does. Sometimes save, refresh. Nope. Okay, so line 43, it's in your JS this time.
Now it's changing the call.
Call is not defined. Okay, let's go look at line 43, see where the error is. So there's 43, so it doesn't like call there. Okay, so that's because we're in the function get call, so that has to be C, not call, because we're passing this parameter into there. So save that and try it, see what happens. Hey, there we go. Excellent. Okay, so everyone else working? Excellent. Okay, so let's get to the point now where we can use our new function to change the left box. So let's go back to our clicked light, above light, below light. We're going to get to our left light. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to, first of all, just like we did before, we're going to define a variable. We want to switch not row now, we want to set column. So we're going to say let col left equal, and we're going to set col left equal to, we're passing it col. So we got our column here. So we want to do col minus 1. So we want to say take your current column and subtract 1 from it. That'll be left if we go 1 left. Then we want to basically do this exact same thing right here. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste that in there. But we're going to change this to col left instead of row below. And we only want to do it if col left is greater than 0. So if we're on the first column and we do col left equals col minus 1, and that gives us col 0, well, that's off our board. We don't want to do it. And then we're going to turn on lights. But this time what we're going to do is we're going to use our standard row. So we're going to leave this to row because we're on the same row as before. And we're going to make this col left. Like that. Oh, before we do that though, we got one more error. This will not work for you. This will error out. Or I think so, yeah. Because our get col C we're doing up here. Right here, we're setting col num equal to get col C. So once we do this, we want to, if it's a valid col number, the first thing we want to do is we want to say that col left equals, we'll say get col left. And so what that's going to do is it's going to take our new col left, which if we have, say our column number is 3, 3 minus 1 is 2, 2 is greater than 0, it's going to say let col left equal get col, and it'll pass 2 as col left. And then col left will go in here and say switch case 2, oh, I'm going to call it C2. And it's going to pass that, and it's going to reset col left to C2 so that it will work and our turn lights on. If you save that, fingers crossed, everything works. You turn on the left light now whenever you click somewhere. Anyone having issues with that? No? Okay, guess what we got to do next? Right. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do the right. If you can't figure it out, don't worry about it. We're going to do it together. But it has to do similarly to how I had you do below last time. So same general idea.
For some reason I'm getting an error on like the far left column.
Okay, what's the error say? Here, let's save mine. I'll see if I get the same error. Let's see. Shift, refresh. So if I click the far left, do I get an error? Inspect element, console. No, that's my standard HTML error. So if I do here, boom, it does it. There, boom, that does that. So what kind of error are you getting? What's the error say? Okay, cannot read property style of null. Okay, so there's only 2 places that we deal with style. That's when we lights on or off. Property style of null. When it's saying style of null, it's saying I can't find, you haven't passed an ID or an ID that I recognize. So it can't read the style of null. It said I couldn't find get element by ID. So if we go where we grab our IDs, where do we get our IDs here? Let me see. Okay, where do we set our IDs? Turn lights on. Oh, here's our ID. So our ID right here is CR R plus 1 or R plus C. So turn lights on. So let's walk through clicking on this. So you click a button and it goes click light and it gives you the row and the column, the button. So it sets all that. It sets your column. It does your first turn lights on. When you get that error, does it turn on the light that you clicked on?
It's weird. It's like giving me an error, but it like kind of does it.
Okay, so it does it, but it gives you an error. Does it turn on?
Top too, so it's like the default.
Does it turn on the top, the bottom, and the left, or does it maybe skip the left?
Click the far left, it fills it up, and then when I click the next row over.
Oh, it works just fine. So everything works, but when you're on far left, it gives you an error. So that probably means that there is an error when we call this. Is this line, or not below light, in your left line, do you have this in your if statement when you click left? I'm guessing if that's wrong, it's trying to run it when it doesn't exist, and that might be why you're getting your error. So if call left is greater than 0, do you have that?
Call below on it.
Oh, so you need to change that to call left. So what it's doing is it's working but it's just trying to do it to a row that or a column that doesn't exist, and that's why you're getting the error. And luckily it errors out gracefully, so it just keeps running. But yeah. So no calling me during class. Okay. Does it work for you now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So everyone got that? Okay, how many people are still working on getting the right to work? Other than Caden, who's been trying to fix an error. Everyone else got the right working?
I'm still working. I have an error on the left.
On the left, what's your error say?
Oh well, right now I'm just redoing something. So there's an unexpected end of input at the end of all of our code.
Oh, unexpected end of input.
I'm not sure.
That means you might have an extra curly brace in there somewhere.
An extra?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a possibility. But it's at the very end, unexpected end of input.
Yes.
So,
I got rid of it.
oh, did you? So there were only 2 down here. Did you have 3? Or
No, it was something up.
oh, okay.
All left.
Oh, okay, cool.
Not really sure why.
Okay. So everyone else, you got the right working. So let's just walk through the right real quick. I imagine you did something similar to this. There are obviously many ways to do this, but I'm just going to copy and paste my left light. I'm going to change it to right light. I'm going to, instead of call left, I'm going to do call right. Instead of -1, now I'm doing the right, so I want to do +1. So call right is going to be call +1. Now I don't care, it's always going to be greater than 0 if I add 1 to it. So I care if call is, as long as call right, here just a second, I'm going to change. Call right, I want it to be less than, and 6, since we only have 5 columns, I want it to be less than 6. Again, if you don't do this, it'll work anyway, but it'll throw some JavaScript errors for you. So then I'm going to set call right equal to call, get call right. And I'm going to turn lights on, roll call right. Just like that. Then if I go and save it or refresh, now boom, hey, look at that, they all turn on. And now is where things get hard. How can you turn on all the lights?
My right is still not working. I get a property value of null at the style again.
Okay, that means that it's trying to set probably 1 in call 6.
I forgot to change one call left to call
Oh,
right.
there you go. And probably in your if statement, similar to what Caden had going on. So Okay, cool. Okay, so at this point, we actually have a working game that is, from my experience, is almost impossible to win. It's like you can get so close, but but yes, it is very difficult. That's because you are now trying it at the hardest level. So what they'll usually do is they'll set up some pre-game boards that will light certain lights, and either you have to turn them all off or all on. So okay, so let's do a few things here though. So we now have a functional game. Now let's make it a real game. So first of all, what do you think we need in a real game of this? What are some of the functions we need besides just being able to click and switch lights? Well, what happens if it gets too hard? You want to reset, don't you? So why don't we add a reset button? So let's go to our calc.html. And here, let's look at this. So we got a nice board. Why don't we put a reset button down here on the left, on the bottom? So let's go back to our code. So let's go to our last. Oh, I'm looking at calculator. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I've got multiple classes doing JavaScript right now. So you guys are a little beyond the other one. Okay, so we got our last row in our table here. Okay, might be easier to keep them completely outside the table, but inside of the body right now, and then we can arrange things later. So after the closed table, but before the close of the body, let's put in an input. Input type equals, and we're going to do button in parentheses. Value equals, let's say reset. You can put whatever words you want here for your reset button and they will appear in the button. And then on click equals just empty quotes for right now, and input is a self-closing one, so it just doesn't have a slash input on the other side, so then / and greater than. If you save that and view it, you now have an input button underneath your table. It should be under your table.
I got another black box.
You got another black box?
Yeah.
Oh, I bet I know why. Because these are all input type button, and if we go to our input,
Just made them like.
yeah. So yeah, that's funny. Here, I'll show you why this is happening. This is because of the way we have our CSS set up. So if I go here, shift, refresh, boom, I got another button. And it's all black, so it's black on black. I think if I highlight, oh, I can't highlight the text on a button. That's too bad. But you see how it clicks like a real button? Like, yay. Unlike these other ones. Or they click too, they move too. Okay. So our CSS is saying, hey, with all input tags, make the background color black, make the width 100, make the height 100 pixels. So what we want to do is we don't want it to happen to this button. So I'm going to go into this button, and anywhere in here, I'm going to just do it after on click. I'm going to add an ID. ID equals. And I'm going to call it control. Except I can't type. Okay, I'm going to give it an ID of control, because we're going to have other buttons, and we want them to not be affected either. Now, with a lot of different coding languages, last one in wins. So if I go down to my style where I have, this is what I do if it's an input. If I now add, let's see, ID is $, or hashtag for you guys, control. So it's going to say for all of the inputs, do this. Oh, now for anything with an ID button here, do that. Let's do our first thing. Let's change our background color. Dash color, colon, and let's set it to, we can do a little RGB. Let's just do a light gray. So let's do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 C's. C, 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 C. Or yes, 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 in Italian. If you save that and view it, now your big black box should be a big gray box, and it might even have the words that you put in it, value reset or whatever in it. Is that true? I haven't looked yet. Okay, so if we go here, shift, refresh. Hey, look at that. Now we got a big giant gray reset button. We're closer. Okay. So now let's change its width. Let's make its width. Let's set it to about 50 or 75 pixels. Let's make its height. We'll play with this a little bit once we got it. Let's say 50 pixels. You can go in later and you can adjust these if you want. And I'm going to add one more thing. Font size. Let's see what it looks like as 20 pixels. I'm going to add a font size. Oops. Control S, not Control A. Okay, now if you save that in view, your button size should have changed. Your font, I believe, should get bigger. I'm just taking a wild guess on the font size. Let's go take a look. Shift, refresh. Hey, look at that. We got almost like a real reset button there. We can play with it some more in a little bit. Now here, I'll show you what I mean by last one in wins. So you don't have to do this. First of all, is everyone's working?
Mine's just a black square again.
Black square again?
But it's kind of like a rectangle.
Okay, that's interesting. Look at your background color. Is background color spelled just like this with a dash in between, no spaces?
Oh, there's a semicolon.
Oh, okay.
Is it possible to make the button lower?
Yes,
From the,
we'll show you how to do that in a second. Before you don't do this, but watch what happens if I take all this code and I put it in front of my input. And I save it, so it says control first, and then it says, now watch, this won't work, but it should. And then it says input tags. Nah, it didn't work. I was worried about that. It's supposed to be the last one in wins, but also what wins, and I kind of forgot about that, is the more exacting reference. So first one was all input tags. This one is an input, this one is the ID control. Because control is more specific, it also wins. So, okay. You wanted to add some spaces above it? If we go up here, let's go margin dash top and add a 20 pixel space there if you want. Maybe it's a little too close to the left too. You can add margin dash left. Let's add a 5 pixel space there, see what that looks like. So margin dash top, margin dash left. You can do that. If you've had my CSS class, you might even know how to do it with margin. Where you stop, I think margin starts left, top, right, bottom, or is it top, right, bottom, left? I don't remember. One of those two, I'd have to try it to see. Okay, so if we do that and refresh, there, now it's down a little bit, and oh, it's almost exactly lined up now. Okay, so that was fun playing with the button. If you want to do more of that, guess what you can Google? You can Google styles. Google CSS, Cascading Style Sheets, and it'll show you all kinds of stuff you can do with Cascading Style Sheets. So, okay, so we got our button looking like a button now. Now we care about the on-click. When we do the on-click, let's just call a function called reset. So just reset, I did mine all lowercase. I don't believe that reset is a reserved function in JavaScript. There is a chance this is a reserved function. Like I did clear on a calculator once, and clear is a reserved function in JavaScript, and you can't override a reserved function. So if that's true, it won't work. So we'll go find out, make sure this isn't a reserved function. But everyone got reset with the parentheses and the semicolon in there, and they're on click? If so, let's go to our JavaScript. Let's just go to the bottom. After the very last curly bracket, let's make a function called reset. Okay. To make sure it's not a reserved function, how can we test it? How can we test that this function actually works? Alert. Yep. There we go. You can put whatever you want, the alert. Semicolon, save, refresh, and it should say yep. Shift, refresh, or whatever you put in there. Some people are still typing what they were going to put in there. What are you doing pushing this button? Don't push this button anymore. I mean it. So something like that. Okay, so that means that reset is not a reserved function. If I'd put clear in here, and we put alert yup in there, nothing would have happened. I've been like, why? I'm calling the right function. And that's just something to remember, that there are certain functions that are reserved for use. Okay, so we don't care about yup. See ya. Okay. So what do we want to do when we clear? We got 5 minutes. What do we want to do when we clear? Yep. So I'm going to put a comment in here, set all squares. I'm going to try to spell squares correctly. Back to black. Okay. What else are we going to have to do programmatically, do you think? We've got some global variables up here. Or do we? No, maybe we don't. We got let lights equal new array. That's fine. That's all set up. We got functions with their own variables. Yeah, there's nothing to reset. Normally at this point you would reset global variables, but currently we have none. So all we have to do is run it through a thing to reset all the buttons to black. Now I'm going to give you a little homework, but I'm going to set you up for this homework. So I'm going to do a for loop. Now, do you guys remember for loops? And you've got another code if you need it, or you got Google. For loop to loop through rows. So you're going to want a for loop to loop through your rows. Inside of that, have for loop to loop, or no, maybe we don't need, yeah, loop through columns. And you don't, this one is questionable. You can do it this way. There are other ways to do this. Finally, switch to select different columns. I think columns is spelt with an N. There we go. That's why I don't grade on spelling. And finally, I'm going to copy this line right here in my else. I'm going to say // boom. What does that line do? What does that line do? Sets it to black. So you're going to want a for loop to go through your rows. You may want a for loop to go through your columns. Again, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You're going to use a switch to select different columns. And then you're going to set each to black. So you're going to use that ID to set each to black. You can look at earlier code in this, and you can look at other code. That is your homework for when you come back next week, and we'll talk about it and get there. So any questions? No? Is that too hard? You think you can do it? If you can't do it, don't kill yourself over it. Just come back, say I couldn't figure it out, and we'll walk through it. So this is more of an activity than graded homework. So it's just something to stretch your mind a little bit. With that, we're all going to say, I hope the FBI lets Zach go soon so we can see him again. But we'll see what happens, and we'll talk to you next week.